What's going on? Boys, thanks to our patrons and Fiverr customers, subscribe to our Patreon free for behind the scenes stuff. Arm yourselves, typology stuff. I wish I lacked a little more dignity. We would be making typology skits, we would be making typology memes, but instead, today we are talking about extroverted thinking. There is a typology concept I should probably make a full video about. It's the causation correlation thing with cognitive functions. There are behaviors or characteristics or traits that are commonly linked with specific cognitive functions. But having this trait doesn't mean you have that cognitive function, and having that cognitive function doesn't guarantee you'll have this or that trait. With TE, you hear all about efficiency. And it's true, a lot of the time with TE types you will find them to be more efficient than TI types, but that's not always the case, and I don't even think it's usually the case. Rather, I think TE leads TE types to do things that can lead to more efficiency. Because TE isn't called productivity. TE is called extroverted thinking, which means thinking outside your head. In the same way, a TI type's internal logical framework doesn't directly, often rarely, translates into truth or facts. With TE, you see lots of thought structuring in their environment. And they start to look like actual totems of thought. That's why oftentimes TE types prefer working smarter to harder, though they'll call it working smarter. Whatever it is they're doing, it's not more efficient, it's more structured, and there are more structures. And in the absence of structure, or the appearing absence of structure, or in the absence of anything, a process or whatever it is can start to look and feel more efficient because more structure is being applied to it. And these external structures can help efficiency, like a planner, or like a calendar, or like a committee, but not always. TE is where inefficient bureaucracy comes from, because in response to any problem or any new information, instead of seeking a resolution, they seek to build a structure, because in their minds, structures produce solutions. And that's true sometimes, but not always. And especially with dumb TE types, they'll think structure building on its own is the answer, or they'll think it's the end itself. You see this super often in nonprofits. There is a special action committee for everything. And there will be, this is where I think shit meetings come from. For TE types, structure like this, even pointless, aimless structure, is like a blanket, or it's a gold medal. And I think this also is where TE types can seriously sabotage themselves. They'll want to understand everything about something before they ever dip one toe in the pool they're thinking about swimming in. And of course, most of them, most of the time, will never jump into that pool, because the catharsis for them doesn't come from actually doing the thing. It comes from structure building around the thing. I knew one ENTJ who wanted badly to get into long distance hiking. So she researches everything about hiking for months. Then she drops all this money on all this tactical, tricked out equipment. And then she spends months researching how best to distribute the weight. Then she thinks cardio is going to be important. That's rational, that makes a lot of sense. Although I think the part of the point of hiking is building your cardio. But building some cardio beforehand, that makes sense. So what are you going to do? Are you going to walk shorter distances? Are you going to get on the stair stepper or something? No, she's going to research everything about cardio and VO2 max. VO2 maxing, she's going to buy a treadmill. And then, after all this time, never actually go hiking. And I sympathize with researching. But I think with TI types, over time, you'll, and sometimes immediately, depending on what it is, you'll have a sense of what you absolutely need to know, and then a bunch of things you don't need to know. And when you get into comparing types, you can see this everywhere. TE types will surround themselves with objects or decorations that speak to their interests or help their life trajectory feel more structured, like they're building the cockpit of the life they want to drive around. Whereas with TI types, it's not like that. And it's interesting because SE types, I've found, tend to have good aesthetic sense. Another correlation versus causation thing, maybe. But it's aesthetics. Let's think about my despised INFJs for a moment. In my experience, INFJs' living spaces tend to look very nice, even the men's. And even if they're going minimal, it's an aesthetic minimal. It's not a Spartan minimal. But it's aesthetically pleasing. Or it helps the vibes. It's not ideologically constructed. Or it's not an externalization of the soul. If you enter an SE type space, you might get a feel for the sort of person they are or how they are. You enter a TE type's place, you get an immediate sense of what they are. And I think this all has to do with the interesting way TE types feel like some of the only people that have actual hobbies. As in, when you're a kid, you're learning about hobbies like stamp collecting or some shit. These are the stamp collectors of the world. And I don't mean that negatively. In my experience, TI types' hobbies are all somehow connected. Almost everything they do is oriented in the same direction. If the sun is some far off, difficult to see, maybe they don't know what it is, probably they don't know what it is, direction their life is moving, or concern they spend their lives concerned with, all their hobbies will be little solar panels. They might not look that way at first, but if you investigate, you'll find the thing is oriented toward whatever their guiding light is, or they're into it in a way that speaks to their guiding light. And that'll go for everything. And I think that speaks to the TI identity thing we talked about forever ago. An example, you have one person who is obsessed with prepping, who's a TI type, but then they're also a competitive swimmer. Those things don't immediately connect, but then you ask them about it. Why do you swim so much, or why are you this concerned with being great at swimming? It's because they're afraid of drowning. In TI types, there is always a reason, or there is always a spin that speaks to whatever they are most concerned with. But then you have TE types who will, out of nowhere, start collecting coins. To you and to others, they will justify their fascination by saying something like, well, you can sell these coins once you've built up enough of a collection. But they never sell the coins. And probably they're not going to be into collecting coins forever. Rather, to me, it looks like TE types use hobbies as an excuse to go around researching and collecting shit. And probably building another totem in their space. And I'm guessing FI has a lot to do with that. They receive a transmission from the FI gods saying, this is the thing you need to be concerned with now. But it looks more to me like they like having an excuse to go out and investigate things and learn other structures or participate in building other structures. If we're thinking about this in Stellaris terms, this video is all over the place, by the way. We just went through a few video topics that I could have turned into videos on their own and milked them, but we're not doing that. because I hate typology and typology people. So we're stuffing all this good shit into the TE concept skeletons video. Great video title. If we're thinking about hobbies and we're using Stellaris terminology, or I guess 4X in general terminology, TE types build wide. They like having an excuse to go into other systems, colonize other systems, other planets, do all the archaeology projects, research all the anomalies, and just get as much stuff over their life as possible. Versus TI types who like building tall. They like claiming an okay amount of space and then slowly but surely learning how to optimize every little piece of their empire, fiddle with every little thing within their borders, and get it all attuned so they have the best economy, the most unassailable borders, with the least resources. Because that's what TI types like doing. We are less concerned with learning everything and instead prefer knowing the best something. And this is why I call this video TE Concept Skeletons. Both in what they do and also why I like having TE types around. Or why I like consulting them. Different TE types, different purposes. TE types love assembling skeletons of information. TE types usually can't give you an in-depth breakdown about everything, but they're very partially aware of a lot of shit. And different TE types do this differently, by the way. NTJs and SFPs are good for getting a critic's lay of the land, whatever land you're potentially interested in investigating. Because while all FI types are opinionated, NTJs and SFPs, or the NI types, they seem to like skeleton quality or skeleton scent. They are still bone collectors, but if your tastes align, they can save you a lot of time. Versus the NFPs and STJs. They're also very opinionated, but in my experience, they are more interested in quantity of skeletons. TESI types like knowing a little about a whole lot. Now, all these TE types act like they know a whole lot about a whole lot, but you go to NI types for quality or thoroughness of a collection. You go to SI TE types to ask about anything else. Because for you as a TI type, here is the benefit of knowing a bunch of skeleton collectors and assemblers. They can give you a framework of how something works. Now, obviously, what they give you is not or won't come out of the box suited to you, because what you're concerned with, you are concerned with filling out the skeleton and then making this new homunculus serve whatever your overarching life goal is. And that'll take a lot of time and work no matter where you are in the process. But by lending you their scaffolding, they eliminate a lot of groundwork you as a TI type would need to bungle around in until you got your feet underneath you. Because structure building is your weakest point, or one of your weakest points. Even if you have to fuck with the skeleton itself before you start putting meat on the bones, at least you have a skeleton to work with. Maybe you decide you're going to get into hiking. You just so happen to know Miss doesn't walk. She's been researching hiking, if not hiking, for a while now, and she can get you up to speed relatively quickly, and then you can make your adjustments and pull the trigger. And then go on a long distance hike without your phone and without telling anyone where you're going. And maybe that's why TE types have always felt a little odd to me. When TE types become experts on something, it's more like they've developed a narrower but deeper archive of resources. It is expertise, But TI expertise is different. It's more like an intangible force. When I'm good at something, there isn't a ton I can point to. I'm good at this, or I understand this well, but I can't point you to a line of things that will get you to where I'm standing now. And I think back to my time in university, my TI professors in English versus my TE professors in English. TE professors, the higher level ones, the ones I liked, they can direct you to arcane, obscure information for answers about something or insight into something. And they probably own it, and they'd be happy to loan it to you. But it's like their mind or their expertise is this external hard drive of resources that they have accumulated over the years. They know a lot, and they're happy to sit with you and share with you and try to talk you through things. I was sitting here trying to figure out how to put this. Their power comes more from their attunement with whatever their focus is. So they can't direct you to a book from the 1300s, but they can tell you how to use any whatever modern source to hook up to whatever it is you and probably they are trying to accomplish. It's hard to explain. I was still sitting here trying to think of how to say this. The closest I can get, and I think this speaks to what we're talking about, is a person putting fingers on their temples and closing their eyes and grimacing in pain and knowing. I'm about to know. But for this video, you get the idea. TE types like gathering and organizing information externally, and they'll find any excuse to do so. And they are very good for surveying before you dive deep, 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 deep into something. Like if you enjoyed, subscribe if you haven't.